My mother told me that staying close to my dad meant I had chosen his side. The problem was that he was not my biological father. She had only told me that 3 days earlier. And somehow, while my parents were ending their marriage, I had become the person expected to prove who I loved more. I am 31. My parents had been married for 34 years. To everyone outside the family, they were stable, not especially affectionate, not dramatic, just solid. My dad, Richard, was the person who taught me to drive, helped me move into my first apartment, sat through every school concert, and answered the phone no matter what time I called. My mother, Elaine, was different. She loved hard, but she could be difficult. She wanted closeness, but often on her terms. If I did not call enough, she noticed. If I shared something with Dad first, she noticed that too. I learned early that loving my mother sometimes meant managing her feelings. Then, 6 weeks ago, they separated. I did not see it coming. My mother called me crying and said Dad had moved into a furnished apartment across town. She said they had been unhappy for years. I asked what happened. She said, "There is something you need to know first." Then she told me Richard was not my biological father. I honestly did not know what to say. There had been little things over the years, different blood types, family jokes about how I looked like nobody, a strange answer once when I asked Dad about the year I was born. But I had never pushed, mostly because he never gave me a reason to feel like I was anything except his daughter. I asked my mother if Dad knew. She said yes. He had known since I was a toddler. He chose to stay. He chose to raise me. Then she said the name of my biological father, Daniel, a man I had never met. I asked why she was telling me now. She said, "Because I am done protecting Richard." That confused me. I said, "Protecting him from what?" She said he had insisted the truth stay buried. She said he was afraid I would want to find Daniel. She said he had always been threatened by the idea that biology might matter to me. That was not the man I knew. But suddenly I was questioning everything. The next day, Mom sent me Daniel's full name, then a photo, then a link to his business page. She said he lived only 2 hours away. I did not ask for any of that. I told her I was not ready. She replied, "You deserve the truth." I said, "Knowing his name is the truth. Contacting him is a separate decision." She did not answer. Meanwhile, Dad called me once. He did not know Mom had told me. He asked if I was okay. I almost told him, but I froze. Part of me was angry. Part of me was terrified he would sound relieved that the secret was finally out. Part of me was terrified he would suddenly act differently. So I said I was fine. He told me he loved me. Then he asked if I needed anything. That made it worse. My mother kept pushing. At first, gently. She said Daniel had a right to know me. Then she said I had siblings through him. Then she said I might regret waiting. Finally, she said, "You keep protecting Richard's feelings instead of thinking about your own life." I told her I had not even spoken to Dad about it. She said, "Exactly." I asked what she meant. She said, "You are afraid of hurting him because he made you feel like you owe him." That made me angry. I said, "He raised me." She said, "Yes, and he made that choice." I said, "That does not make it meaningless." Then she started asking me to get involved in the separation. She wanted me to tell Dad he was being unfair about the house. She wanted me to ask him why he would not answer her calls. She wanted me to tell him she deserved more respect after 34 years. I refused. She said I was avoiding reality. I said, "This is your marriage. I am your daughter." She said, "You are an adult." I said, "That does not make me your mediator." Dad was not innocent either. A week later, he asked if Mom had been talking badly about him. I said I did not want to be in the middle. He said he understood. Then 10 minutes later, he asked whether she had mentioned a lawyer. I reminded him what I had just said. He apologized. At least he stopped. Mom did not. Then my younger brother Evan called me. He is 27. He did not know the truth. Mom had made me promise not to tell him. So while he complained about how strange our parents were acting, I had to sit there knowing our entire family story had changed. He asked me if I thought Dad had cheated. I said I did not know. He asked if Mom had. I said I did not know. Both answers felt dishonest. I hated it. The turning point came after dinner at my mother's apartment. She had invited me over because she said she wanted one normal evening. For the first hour, it was normal. Then she brought out an envelope. Inside were printed photos of Daniel. Some were recent, some were from decades ago. One showed him at around 25. I looked at it, and for the first time, I saw my own face in someone else's. Same eyes, same mouth, same chin. It was unsettling. Mom watched me carefully. Then she said, "You see it now?" I said nothing. She said, "You should call him." I put the photos back in the envelope. I said, "Stop." She looked hurt. I said, "You are not giving me information anymore. You are trying to make a decision for me." She said she was trying to help me reclaim something that had been taken from me. I asked, "By who?" She said, "Your father." I said, "Which one?" She went quiet. Then she told me something I had not known. Dad had not been the one who originally demanded secrecy. She had. When I was little, Daniel had apparently tried twice to contact her. Dad had told her that one day I might deserve to know. Mom refused. She was afraid Daniel would disrupt the family. She was afraid I would see Dad differently. She was afraid the marriage would not survive it. Dad eventually agreed to keep quiet. Mom said he later became more protective of the secret than she was. But he had not created it. They both had. That changed everything. Not because Dad suddenly became innocent. He still helped hide the truth from me for almost 30 years. But Mom had spent weeks presenting the story as if he had stolen my biological father from me. Now I knew she had made the same choice. Maybe first. I asked why she had blamed him. She said, "Because he benefited from it." I said, "So did you." She started crying. Then she admitted something else. She said she was terrified that after the separation, Dad would still have me. She said Evan had always been closer to her. I had always been closer to Dad. And now, with the marriage ending, she felt like she was losing both her husband and her daughter. Suddenly, the pressure made emotional sense. It was still wrong, but it made sense. I said, "You do not get to use the biggest secret of my life to make sure I stay loyal to you." She said she was not doing that. I said, "Then stop asking me to prove that he matters less now." She cried harder. I did not leave immediately. I sat there with her, because she was still my mother, and because I believed she was genuinely falling apart. But I did not take back the boundary. The next day, I called Dad. I told him I knew. There was a long silence. Then he said, "Your mother told you." I said yes. He sounded tired, not surprised. I asked why he never told me. He said he was afraid. At first, afraid of destroying the family. Later, afraid I would hate him for waiting so long. He said, "Every year made the next year harder." I understood that. I also told him it was not good enough. He said, "I know." Then I asked the question I had been afraid to ask. "If I contact Daniel, does that change anything between us?" Dad answered immediately, "No." I started crying. He said, "You do not have to protect me from knowing where you came from." That was the sentence I needed. Maybe he should have said it 20 years earlier, but I needed it then. Update 1. I have not contacted Daniel. Not yet. I saved his information. That is all. For now, I need the choice to actually feel like mine. My mother has stopped sending me photos. She still makes occasional comments about Dad. When she does, I end the conversation. Dad has also been told I will not discuss Mom with him. He has respected that. Mostly. Update 2. I told Evan the truth. I did not do it behind Mom's back. I told both parents first that I would no longer carry the secret alone. Mom was furious. Dad said he understood. Evan was shocked. Then he hugged me and said, "You're still my sister, idiot." That helped more than I expected. My relationship with my mother is strained, but it is more honest. She finally admitted she wanted me to take her side because she felt abandoned. I told her I could love her without agreeing with her. I could love Dad without defending everything he did. And if I ever choose to meet Daniel, that will not erase either of them. I used to think family loyalty meant standing beside someone when things became ugly. Now I think loyalty can also mean refusing to participate in the ugliness. My parents lied to me for decades. They also loved me. Dad raised me. Mom protected the family she thought she was saving. Both made choices they had no right to make for me. And somehow, both truths have to exist at the same time. The question I still cannot answer is whether keeping a painful secret can ever be an act of love. Because if it can, at what point does protection become control?